Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to part 5 of my look at the Ranger class through the ages, and today we're going to be stepping into Pathfinder 1st Edition. So Pathfinder was created by Paizo Publishing, and it was sort of a response to the fact that Wizards of the Coast had ended the contracts that they had with Paizo for their regular magazines, Dungeon Magazine and Dragon Magazine, and we're also preparing for a new version of the game, D&D 4th Edition, which no longer had the open gaming license the same way that 3rd Edition had, and instead had their own newer version that was late coming out. So Paizo decided that because they had a loyal fan base at this point, they simply used the open gaming license to create their own content. Now, starting in 2007, they were releasing Pathfinder products that were designed fully for 3.5 D&D. They had the Pathfinder brand, but they didn't have their own unique rule set at this point in time. In 2009, however, the Pathfinder core rulebook was released, and we have what is now known as Pathfinder 1st Edition. So it uses 3rd Edition, the 3rd Edition open gaming license as sort of a basis, and it models a lot of the concepts for design off of the 3.5 version, but it definitely makes some changes, and we're going to take a look at those here now. So I've got my Pocket Edition core rulebook, and we are going to go to the Ranger class, which starts on page 64, I believe. Okay, so the Ranger. Now, like I said, 3.0 is sort of the basis for the open gaming license. If you take a look at the OGL information in the back of the book, it does have the copyright date for it as 2000. So it is based off of 3.0, and a lot of the 3.0, I'm not going to say a lot, but some of the 3.0 design concepts for the Ranger are still present here. So, for example, the Ranger now has a D10 for their hit dice instead of the D8, which you had in 3.5, but you had the D10 for the 3.0 version of the Ranger, which, again, that's where the OGL comes from. Now, like 3.5, the Ranger does get 6 skill points plus their intelligence modifier per level. However, skills were fixed quite dramatically in Pathfinder 1st Edition. I'm not going to go into all the details because that could absolutely be the subject of a separate video, maybe in this series or maybe its own separate thing. But essentially, they combined some of the similar skills together and just categorize them as a single thing. So instead of having hide and move silently as 2 separate skills, each requiring multiple skill points to have proficiency in both of them, you now just have stealth. So 2 skills become 1, and you have the same for perception, which it takes the place of spot and listen. So the Ranger, to do their scouting things, so being stealthy, being perceptive, and being able to track with the survival skill, that now only utilizes 3 of their 6 skill points per level, instead of it taking up 5 of their 6 skill points per level. So the skill usage is vastly improved as far as the Ranger class is concerned. Now, as far as armor and weapon proficiency, they are proficient in all simple and martial weapons, and they are proficient with light armor, medium armor, and shield. So once again, the Ranger is proficient in medium armor, even though they lose some class features if they wear that medium armor. Again, I feel like this is a holdover from the 3.0 open gaming license that was released in 2000, and not so much, them deciding that that was a better version to have. I'm not entirely sure the reason behind that decision, but again, I would never use medium armor with the Ranger because you lose way more than you gain for having an extra couple of points in armor class. Favorite enemy works the same as it did in 3.5, so you get a +2 bonus with your favorite enemy choice on certain skill checks, including bluff, knowledge, perception, sense motive, and survival checks against them, as well as a +2 bonus on damage rolls. In addition, when you gain a new favorite enemy at 5th level and every 5 levels thereafter, your new favorite enemy also immediately gains that +2 bonus, but you get an additional +2 bonus that you can assign to any of your favorite enemies, including the one that you just chose. So at 5th level, your second favorite enemy could have a +4 bonus to damage rolls as well as those skill checks, or you could have just the standard +2 and then put the additional +2 into the first choice that you made at 1st level, and you just repeat the process again at 10th, 15th, and 20th level. The Ranger gains the track ability, so the Ranger adds half their level, minimum of 1, to survival checks made to follow tracks. This is no longer just giving them the track feat, it's now a separate ability that gives them a bonus on tracking, making them better at tracking than other classes. They still get wild empathy, which allows them to make checks to modify the attitude and behavior of animals, similar to what something like diplomacy would do. They roll a d20 plus their ranger level and their charisma modifier when trying to affect a creature's attitude towards them. Now at second level, they gain their combat style. Now, in 3.5, you actually got to choose between archery or two-up fighting, and then you would just gain a specific feat, or you would gain the benefits of a specific feat, and that was basically it. There were 3 different versions of the weapon style, and each time it granted you another specific option, or that you would take. So, for example, two-up fighting was simply, two-up fighting for the first version, improved two-up fighting, and then greater two-up fighting. But here, what they do with Pathfinder, this is one of the strengths that I think Paizo has always had, even going back to first edition Pathfinder, is the ability to really customize or to make your own choices for certain things. So here you get your combat style, so you gain, basically you choose which one you want to take from either two-up fighting or archery, but what you get instead of a specific feat, or the equivalent of a specific feat, is you actually get to choose from a list. So if the Ranger selects archery, they can choose from the following list whenever they gain a combat style feat, which is again at second level, and again at 6th, 10th, 14th, and 18th. So you actually get quite a few of these feats that you can choose from. So they can choose from the following list. So far shot, point blank shot, precise shot, and rapid shot. Now in 3.5, rapid shot was the one that you got, and that was it. But here it is sort of on the list, so you can choose it, or you can choose something else, like precise shot is actually a really good one to have. At 6th level, they can add improved precise shot and many shot to the list, which is interesting because, again, in 3.5, many shot was the second version, or the upgraded version of your combat style, and then improved precise shot was the third and final ability that you got from it. So now they're actually both being added as options at 6th level. And then at 10th level, you can add pinpoint targeting and shot on the run to the list. So again, a nice selection of feats for you to choose from. Based on the wording, it sounds like you do actually gain the feat in this version of the game, but you do still lose the benefits of it if you are wearing heavy armor. Oh, it says heavy armor, so maybe you can actually do it while wearing medium armor now. That might be better overall. I gotta be honest, I haven't, like I said, I played a Ranger in Pathfinder once years ago, and it was for like 2 sessions. So yeah, it actually specifies heavy armor instead of medium armor, so that's actually good. I will say, I was wrong when I stated the medium armor was sort of an afterthought. Apparently, it is actually something that they can just use, so that's great. I actually do like that quite a bit. Now, if they select two-up fighting, they can choose from the following list. So starting off, they get double slice, improved shield bash, quick draw, and two-up fighting. At 6th level, they can add improved two-up fighting and two-up defense to the list. And then at 10th level, they can add greater two-up fighting or two-up ren to the list. So again, they lose the benefit if they are wearing heavy armor, and once a ranger selects combat style, it cannot be changed. They gain the endurance as a bonus feat at 3rd level, and also at 3rd level, they get this new ability called Favor Terrain. Now, when I put out my 3.5 video, in the comments, someone kind of pointed out, and I do agree with them, and I do understand where they're coming from, was that the Ranger's abilities were really geared towards a natural setting. So it was sort of geared towards outdoor woodland type of things, or at least a type of natural terrain. And the Ranger loses a lot of their effectiveness when they enter like an underground or dungeon or urban setting. So with Pathfinder, they actually added a Favor Terrain class feature, which works sort of similar to what you had with Favored Enemy. So at 3rd level, a Ranger may select a terrain type from the table, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. The ranger gains a +2 bonus on initiative checks and knowledge geography, perception and stealth and survival skill checks when in their favorite terrain, and they normally leave no trail when moving through their favorite terrain. At 8th level and every 5 levels thereafter, the ranger may select an additional favorite terrain. So at 3rd, 8th, 13th, and 18th level, you get the favorite terrain. In addition, at each interval, the skill bonus and initiative bonus in any one favorite terrain, including the one that you just selected, can be increased by an additional +2. So again, working like the favorite enemy. And the fact that it applies to like stealth, survival, and initiative rolls is really good. So here are the terrain types, and this is again one of the best features that I think the Pathfinder Ranger gets. So you do have your sort of like forest or woodland type of terrain, but you also have cold terrain, desert, forest, which I mentioned, jungle, mountain, which includes hills, plains, and then there is plains as in like different planes of existence. So there's plains like just open like savanna type of arid land, and then there is plains like the elemental plains or like the plane of shadow or things like that. So you can actually choose one other than the material plane. You can choose swamp, underground, which includes caves and dungeons, urban, which includes buildings, streets, and sewers, and water both above and below the surface. So this actually addresses the concern that someone had rightfully raised with the Ranger class in my 3.5 video by allowing them to choose multiple terrain types. And that's actually going to factor into some of the other abilities that they get later on. At 4th level, they gain Hunter's Bond. So Hunter's Bond has 2 different options for you to select from. Once you select the option, you are locked into it, but the 2 choices, one of them is the Animal Companion, similar to what the 3.5 version of the Ranger gets. However, your effective level for how powerful your Animal Companion is, based off the Druid Animal Companion chart, is now equal to your Ranger level -3 instead of half of your Ranger level rounded down. Now, it means that your Animal Companion starting off at 4th level is going to be weaker than what it would be in 3.5, but that doesn't last overly long. And the upside is still far better. So in 3.5, an Animal Companion could improve its abilities on the Druid chart only as far as a 10th level Druid, because it's half their level. At 20th level, half of that is 10. The Ranger's Animal Companion in Pathfinder can get up to, at 20th level, they have the abilities of an Animal Companion that would be traveling with the equivalent of a 17th level Druid. So it is a lot better. And the level -3 is more consistent with the hybrid class, I guess you could sort of say. Because the Paladin in 3.5 had Turn Undead like a Cleric did, but their ability to turn was as a Cleric 3 levels lower than their Paladin level, instead of it being half their Paladin level, although the Ranger's favored Animal Companion, I should say, was at half their level. So the 2 classes now have more similarly consistent mechanics, it being that it's an access to a class feature more closely associated with another class, like the Turn Undead for the Paladin or the Animal Companion for the Ranger, and it's now just a level -3. So that's fine. That's definitely better. It starts off a little bit weaker, like I said, but it quickly surpasses what you could possibly even hope to do with the 3.5 version. So that's good. But the other option for the Hunter's Bond is to form a bond with your companions. So this bond allows you to spend a move action to grant half of your favorite enemy bonus against a single target of the appropriate type to all allies within 30 feet who can see or hear them. The bonus lasts for a number of rounds equal to the Ranger's Wisdom modifier, and it does not stack with favorite enemy bonuses that allies might have. So you can grant, if you have +4 against, say, giants, you can select a giant and grant all of your allies within 30 feet of you a +2 bonus on damage rolls against that particular enemy. So again, it's a way of allowing others to benefit from your class features. And truthfully, this is the version that I would probably take over the animal companion. I'm not huge on having animal companions myself, as the rare chances that I get to be a player, but I would absolutely take the forming the bond with the companions. I actually like that quite a bit. Spells. So rangers do gain spells starting technically at 4th level once again, where they gain 0 first level spells, but they can add additional spells for having a high enough wisdom with the bonus spells. However, they actually gain their first real spell slot at 5th level instead of 6th, and they gain their first 2nd level spell, I think at level 7. So they actually gain access to their spell levels a little bit earlier, which I definitely prefer. So yeah, it's nice to see that they don't have to go through 2 levels with 0 spell slots and having to rely on a high ability score to give them a single bonus spell. So yeah, the spell casting again it's slightly improved. It's tweaked just enough to make it better than what we had before. So it's nice to see the improvement. So starting at let's see here, starting at 7th level, the ranger may move through any sort of undergrowth. So with woodland stride, as natural thorns, undergrowth, things like that, at their normal speed without taking damage and without suffering any impediments. Thorns, briars, and overgrown areas that are enchanted or magically manipulated to impede them will still work. So an entangle spell will still affect a ranger. So that's one of the few abilities that is still based off of the woodland terrain. They gain Swift Tracker at 8th level, which allows them to track at their normal movement speed without suffering any penalties. Normally it would be a -5, and they only suffer a -10 penalty on their survival check to track when moving at twice their speed instead of -20. They still gain evasion, so when the ranger gains that, if they make a reflex saving throw against a ability that allows them to save for half damage, they take no damage on a successful save and normal damage on a failed save. That's similar to what they had in 3.5. At 11th level, they gain the Quarry special ability. So at 11th level, a ranger can, as a standard action, denote one target within his line of sight as his quarry. Whenever he is following the tracks of his quarry, a ranger can take 10 on survival checks to follow the tracks while moving at normal speed without any penalties. In addition, he receives a +2 insight bonus on attack rolls made against his quarry, and all critical threats are automatically confirmed. A ranger can have no more than one quarry at a time, and the creature's type must correspond to one of his favorite enemies. He can dismiss the effect at any time as a free action, but he cannot select a new quarry for 24 hours. However, if the ranger sees proof that his quarry is dead, he can select a new one after waiting only an hour. So this actually grants them the ability to gain an attack bonus. It makes tracking a little bit easier on top of the normal bonuses that they may get. And what's great about this is, while it is a little bit more of a powerful ability, it is only against a single target. So this wouldn't be like just against a favorite enemy type. Like you couldn't select Orc. It would have to be a specific Orc that you would follow and gain the benefits for. But still, it absolutely helps. The ability to automatically confirm criticals, which again, in 3rd edition, 3.5, and Pathfinder 1st edition, when you rolled a natural 20, or if your weapon has a critical threat range of like 19 to 20 or 18 to 20 on the dice, you get a chance for a critical where you have to roll the attack again, add your bonus again, and if you hit, then it would be a critical hit. It's one of the things that 3rd edition, I think, was a new concept, and they weren't quite sure how to execute it. Some weapons will do like ×3 or even a ×4 multiplier, so I don't think they wanted it to just be as easy as rolling a natural 20. But I will say that the excitement of rolling a natural 20 and getting that crit just when you need it, only to fail the confirmation roll, is a bit of a downer. So anything that allows you to automatically confirm your crits is definitely a welcome ability. At 12th level, the ranger gains camouflage, so he can use the stealth skill to hide in any of his favorite terrain, even if it does not normally grant cover or concealment. So before in 3.5, it had to be natural surroundings, like a woodland type of thing, but now it can be any of their favorite terrain. So if they chose underground, it could work in dungeons or in caves. If they chose urban, they could do it in city streets. If they chose forest or woodlands, then they could do it there as well. So it's any of their favorite terrains that they have selected. And then at 19th level, or sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit. At 16th level, the Ranger gains improved evasion. So improved evasion works the same way as evasion does. When you make a reflex saving throw for half, if you succeed, you take no damage. With improved evasion, though, even on a failure, you only take half instead of normal. We'll talk more about that in a moment and how I feel about that one. And then you've got hide in plain sight. So again, it works in any of their favorite terrains. They can attempt a stealth check even while being directly observed. They can just sort of fade into their surroundings. And that's any of the favorite terrains that they have, not just natural woodland or, like grassy areas like you had in 3.5. At 19th level, they gain improved quarry, so the ranger's ability to hunt his quarry improves. He can now select a quarry as a free action instead of a standard action, and can now take 20 using survival while tracking his quarry. While moving at normal speed without any penalties, his insight bonus to attack his quarry is increased to +4. If his quarry is killed or dismissed, he can select a new one after only 10 minutes have passed. And then finally, at 20th level, they gain the Master Hunter. Now again, throughout all of these, they're still gaining extra weapon combat style feats. They're still gaining like the extra favorite enemies and extra favorite terrain. These are just the new abilities that they're gaining at each level. But at 20th level, Master Hunter. They can always move at full speed while using survival to follow tracks without penalty. Doesn't matter what the terrain type is or if they're going specifically after their quarry. It's just something they can do all the time now. As a standard action, they can make a single attack roll against a favorite enemy at their full attack bonus. If the attack hits, the target takes damage normally and must attempt a fortitude save or die. The DC of this is equal to half the ranger's, or 10 plus half the ranger's level plus their wisdom modifier. The ranger can choose, instead of it killing them, to just do an amount of non-lethal damage equal to whatever their hit point total is after they get hit by the attack. If they save, then they're not killed, or if they save against the non-lethal version, they're not knocked out and they just take the normal damage. A ranger can use this ability once per day against each favorite enemy type they possess, but not against the same creature more than once in a 24-hour period. So if you had orcs and, say, giants as your favorite enemy types, you could use this ability against any orc or any giant, but you couldn't do it against like 2 orcs or anything like that. So with up to, 5 favorite enemies, that's up to 5 times per day, depending on what favorite enemies you chose and what you're going up against. Keeping in mind that you do get a favorite enemy at 20th level, so there's a good chance you're using it at least against one type of creature at that level. So that is the Pathfinder version of the Ranger class. So that is the base version. Now, there were some expansions to the Ranger class as well. There was the Advanced Class Guide as well as the Advanced Player's Guide. I'm not really going to focus on the Advanced Class Guide here in this video, mainly because it simply just introduces new archetypes, which we'll talk about a little bit here briefly, as well as some hybrid classes, which are classes that take elements from 2 different core classes to create sort of a new theme. There are a couple of Ranger-derived hybrid classes, but none of the ones that I saw in that book, at least, actually really leaned into the Ranger abilities, and they were more in line with whatever the other class was that they had sort of grouped in there. So that will probably be the subject for its own video later on, just because it would be a lot to talk about, and I don't want these videos to be too long. The last one was an hour, but it was my favorite version of the Ranger class, so selfishly I allotted myself a little bit more time to do that. But we're going to take a look just at the Advanced Player's Guide here today, and again, once I finish this series, down the road I can do a companion video similar to what I plan to do for the Bard class at some point in the near future as well, where I take some of these elements and dedicate more time to them. But I want to look at the Advanced Player's Guide for one very specific reason, and that is because there are some new features added to the classes, the core classes from the core rulebook. So let's just move to the Ranger one here. There are also going to be archetypes here as well, and archetypes in Pathfinder First Edition, they are similar to what you think of when you think of archetypes, if you're familiar with the way that they're utilized in 5th edition D&D or in Pathfinder 2nd edition. Essentially, what they are themed versions of the class, which substitute out some of the abilities that they would get normally for something that's more in line with what the theme is. We'll take a look at a couple of choices here, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail because, again, that could be the subject of a bonus video. But the main thing that I actually want to take a look at here is something that I honestly I could have sworn was part of the class by default in the core rulebook, because I remembered very strongly that these were options that the class had. Now, back in the day, I did own the Advanced Player's Guide. I owned the hardcover of it, but I never really used it, and I didn't really look at it all that much. When I found out that the Pathfinder game that I was playing, which only lasted for 2 sessions, was going to be limited to the core rulebook, and that was it, it kind of killed the incentive for me to look through the Advanced Player's Guide. So I remembered these new options, but I thought that they were part of the core class. So I was surprised when I started reading the Ranger class, or just kind of brushing up on it. Obviously, I missed the armor requirement thing, but when I was sort of brushing up on it, I was surprised that it only had archery and 2-up and fighting, because I distinctly remember there being other versions of the Ranger combat style, and they were introduced in this book. So on page 124 of the Advanced Player's Guide, you've got new combat styles. So they include crossbow. So if the Ranger selects the crossbow style, he can choose from the following list whenever he gains a combat style feat. So beginning with their 2nd level choices, you have deadly aim, focus shot, precise shot, and rapid reload. At 6th level, they can add crossbow mastery and improve precise shot to the list. And then at 10th level, they can add pinpoint targeting and shot on the run. There's also the mounted combat style. So if the Ranger chooses the mounted combat, he can choose from the following list whenever they gain a combat style feat. So mounted combat, mounted archery, ride by attack, and trick riding. At 6th level, they can add mounted shield and spirited charge. And then at 10th level, they can choose from mounted skirmisher and unseat. Those are added to the list of feats that they can choose there. They can also select natural weapons. So if the Ranger selects natural weapon, they could choose from the following list. Aspect of the Beast, which does include the ability to grow claws as a natural weapon that does D4 damage. So you can gain claws from taking Aspect of the Beast. Beast. You can also take Improved Natural Weapon, which was from the Bestiary. You can take Rending Claws and Weapon Focus. At 6th level, you can add Eldritch Fangs, which allows them to count as silver and magic for damage reduction purposes, as well as Vital Strike to the list. And then at 10th level, they can add Multi-Attack and Improved Vital Strike to the list. There's also the two-handed weapon style. So if the Ranger selects two-handed weapon, they can choose from the following list. So Cleave, Power Attack, Pushing Assault, and Shield of Swings. Shield of Swings is kind of neat. It works like Power Attack, and where you can subtract from your base attack bonus, but instead of it adding to damage like Power Attack does, it actually adds to your armor class, which is kind of neat. At 6th level, they add Furious Focus and Great Cleave to the list, and then at 10th level, they add Dreadful Carnage, which sounds pretty awesome, and Improved Sunder to the list. And then finally, you've got Weapon and Shield. Weapon and Shield. So good old sword and board action. If the Ranger selects Weapon and Shield, they gain the following feats they can choose. Improve Shield Bash, Shield Focus, Shield Slam, and 2-up in fighting. At 6th level, they can add Saving Shield and Shield Master to the list. And then at 10th level, they can add Bashing Finish and Greater Shield Focus to the list. Bashing Finish is actually kind of cool. If you score a critical hit with your primary weapon, you get to make a free Shield Bash attack against the same target, which is kind of cool. So this actually expands the combat style. And if you're familiar with, say, 5th edition D&D, you may recognize that some of the combat styles are similar to what they have as choices in 5th edition. So there's 2-up in fighting. There's archery, there's dueling, or sword and shield, two-handed weapon. So this actually expanded the Ranger's capabilities. Now, the reason that I actually thought that this was part of the class by default. We're just going to go back to the core rulebook here for a second. And the reason I remembered that is because each class has like their iconic artwork. And if we go to the Ranger, they had chosen a Dwarf Ranger who has both a crossbow and a two-handed weapon. So that looks like a great axe. It could be just a regular battle axe, but that's a pretty long haft for the, or handle for the weapon versus the size of the character. So I distinctly remembered like crossbow and two-handed weapons being in the Ranger abilities. But as it turns out, it wasn't in the core rulebook. It was in the Advanced Player's Guide. But I remembered this artwork, and I think that's what led to the confusion. So those were the new options added that I really appreciated in this book. But we also do have some archetypes. And like I said, I'm not going to go through these in much detail. They're basically just themes for the character abilities that replace certain things. For example, the Beastmaster gains Animal Companion at 4th level. It replaces their Hunter's Bond. So they can't choose to have like a bond with their allies anymore. It has to be an Animal Companion. However, the benefits of taking this, if you wanted to be a Beastmaster, is that you could actually have multiple animal companions at the same time. You just divide up your effective druid level amongst your different animal companions. So let's just say that you were a 7th level ranger, which makes you the equivalent of a 4th level druid for the purposes of your animal companion. You could choose to have 4 first level versions of an animal companion. You could have 2 second level versions. You could have a first and a third level version, or you could have 1 4th level version. So you can sort of divide up your levels for boosting their base abilities amongst as many as you possibly can. So that's kind of a cool feature if you wanted to do that. And I think they reach a point where they also are able to act as if their level was equal to a druid's level, so they no longer take like the -3 penalty. The guide has a terrain bond, which allows them to grant bonuses to their allies, similar to the favorite terrain stuff, but it is like in a specific terrain and replaces their ability to grant the like bonus for the favorite enemy if they chose the companion sort of thing. You have the Horse Lord, which just focuses more on like the mounted combat. You have the Urban Ranger, which has trades some of their natural or woodland abilities for things that are sort of the equivalent in the city. So instead of having like the camouflage or wood, instead of having like woodland stride, they can do what's called push through, so they can move through a busy, crowded street without suffering any penalty to their movement. Think of it kind of like Assassin's Creed, where you're just sort of moving through a crowd and just sort of gently nudging people out of your way. They gain Blend In, which allows them to use stealth in place of a disguise kit or disguise skill to, basically mask their appearance when they're traveling throughout the city. So they sort of get like this, like I said, these different aspects or these different themes that replace some class features with ones that are much more strictly defined. It's okay. They're interesting. None of them really reached, like, kind of grabbed me as something that I would want to try. But the extra weapon styles, combat styles, those were something that I definitely appreciated when it came to the Pathfinder Ranger. Now, overall, what are my thoughts on the Pathfinder Ranger? Because the 3.5 Ranger I had mentioned in the last video was my favorite version of the class, and by all accounts, the Pathfinder version takes everything that was good about the previous 3.5 version and makes them better, sometimes slightly, sometimes drastically. I will say that giving them the favored terrain and allowing them to choose multiple terrain types, giving them more flexibility with where they get some of their abilities in. It allows them to be useful as scouts, or, to be stealthy, or to just be able to do certain class features in non-natural terrain settings like underground or more like desert or other like type of regions. So I actually like that. It does address the fact that in 3rd edition and 3.5, specifically 3.5, the Ranger is at their most effective when in an outdoor natural setting. Here, there's actually some flexibility with that, and I really appreciate that. Also, giving advantage or a bonus to initiative rolls in your favorite terrain is also fantastic, and it kind of reminds me a bit of the first edition version where the ranger could surprise more frequently, and instead of like surprising more frequently necessarily in Pathfinder, they just, if they're in their element, then they just usually will get to act faster than other characters could. So I think that that is an excellent ability. Their Master Hunter one, where they can trade multiple attacks for a single attack that has the chance to instant kill, sounds powerful, but truthfully, wizards, sorcerers, and I think even like clerics might have access by, definitely by that point, to a lot of like instant death effects. So I'm totally fine with that. And again, you sacrifice multiple attacks for that ability. So I'm on board with it. It's not that overpowered. It's actually kind of neat. And other classes like the Bard had an ability at 20th level where their music or their performance could potentially kill someone. So it's kind of in line with similar abilities that other classes also get. So I'm not going to like stress over that too much. I will say the one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of would have to be the improved evasion ability. And it's just because I don't really like improved evasion as a concept. I don't mind the regular evasion, even though in 3rd edition, a lot more things required reflex saving throws than what like 5th edition D&D, for example, would sort of expand to certain things, granting like or causing you to roll fortitude, or not fortitude, but I guess constitution or other types of saving throws. So the evasion one, I personally, I think that improved evasion should be exclusive to the rogue class because it's something that makes the rogue kind of stand out. And they were the first class to really gain that. I think the monk class also had it even in 3.0. But when I think of improved evasion, I really think of the rogue class. And the improved evasion is a way from making up for their D6 hit dice, which is a huge shortcoming, versus the ranger getting up to the D10 now, once again, in Pathfinder. So that's something I kind of personally would have liked to have seen swapped out and kept as a rogue class exclusive ability to make them a little bit more special. But that's just me, and I know a lot of people will absolutely love the fact that they gain improved evasion. So I wouldn't hold it against the class. It's just not my own personal preference. But yeah, overall, the Pathfinder Ranger is an awesome class. I love the combat style giving you a choice now instead of forcing feats on you. Like I said, with 2-Up and Fighting in 3.5, it was okay because each version of the 2-Up and Fighting just gave you an extra attack at progressively worse bonuses, the way that your primary weapon would attack. But the archery one was a little underwhelming in terms of what they got, especially at their final version. So being able to choose from a wider array of these feats to do instead of getting improved precise shot as your like top version of the feat or of the class ability, I definitely prefer the way that Pathfinder did it. I would have liked for them to have stuck with the D8 hit dice. I thought that the D8 was a good compromise for it being a class that's a little bit more focused on maneuverability and stealth and kind of not necessarily ambush tactics, but more careful, study of enemies and, things along those lines. So I kind of like the D8 hit dice, but the fact that they go back to a D10, definitely by no means a deal breaker. And yeah, if I had to choose, honestly, I would go with the Pathfinder version over the 3.5. That said, the 3.5 I think is always going to be my favorite version of the Ranger class, simply because of the effect it's had personally on me throughout my life. As I mentioned in the 3.5 video, the 3.5 Ranger is where I got the name that I use for my channel now. So, the first time I played an in-person event, I played a 3.5 Ranger. So the personal nostalgic side of me will always go with the 3.5 Ranger as my personal favorite. But if I were to have to choose which version of the class I wanted to play as a player, then I would go with the Pathfinder First Edition, and I would hope to be able to take advantage of the extra combat styles that we have from the Advanced Player's Guide. So that was my look at the Pathfinder Ranger. Let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the class? Do you like the new abilities, such as the favorite terrain, which I think is a huge game changer for the class, the improved evasion, the ability to have the hunter's bond with the party members instead of focusing on an animal companion? Do you like the extra combat style that have been added with the Advanced Player's Guide? Do you prefer the choice of feats over the much more limited versions that you have to take with the 3.5 version? Again, this is not to be a discussion about which edition is better. It's just let me know your memories of the Pathfinder First Edition Ranger and how you thought it compared to the 3rd edition or 3.5 Ranger. But please do so respectfully. If you want to see me do a video focusing on some of the archetypes for the Ranger class introduced in the Advanced Player's Guide, as well as the Advanced Class Guide and some of the hybrid classes, let me know in the comments below. It is something that I plan on doing eventually as a bonus video, but I could move that up if there's more interest in that. But that will still be reserved for the end of this series regardless. But if you're interested in those, let me know, and I can certainly put that onto the list of things I want to cover. So that was, like I said, Pathfinder First Edition. Come back next time when we take a look at the 4th Edition Ranger, and I think this one's going to be pretty interesting. So yeah, hopefully you guys come back for that one. Thank you again for all your support. It does mean the world to me. I hope you have a pleasant evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is for you, the rest of the week, month, year, regardless. I hope things are going well for you. And until next time, take care.